Okay, so Susanna Mullen is with us on the line. Alan Quinlan is with us in studio. I don't know where to start here because you want to start with the quality of the performance, but also you want to start with the biting, which seems kind of egregious. Like, in the moment, is there anything else that Ireland could have done to draw attention to the fact? Because it's so obvious, and they say it to the referee, and the referee says, "I didn't see it." The TMO will catch it.
Aoife Wafer was
You can hear her
complaining
saying
that she was bitten a couple of times.
Yeah,
not just that time.
Three times, I think.
Yeah, it's really poor. It's frustrating.
But a red card changes the game
Completely. Now, to be fair, any biting incidents that ever have been punished before, they're usually kind of post-match stuff. But when you have the player complaining, the referee standing right beside her, looking down at the breakdown, player pulling their hand away, the captain then claiming it, the referee should have stopped there and said to Ian Tempo, as they call him, can you please check the last breakdown to see if did something happen there? There's an allegation of a biting incident. He was very quick to come in at other times for stuff, and he does a lot of the men's games. He's very experienced, and look, to be fair, he's a good TMO, and yeah, I just think when he can hear the captain, the referee, he needs to look at that. Like, there's no point in post-match that this is very obvious, clear. It was up on the big screen as well.
You can see the bite in the big screen. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, 42nd minute. It changes the whole thing, and it's frustrating. Their second row was cited as well for a tackle, dangerous tackle. We that one hasn't been kind of highlighted. But I checked online. I'm not saying that it was played in the big screen and the crowd reacted, and they didn't. These things are tricky to see, and if you're at the match and you see the replay on the screen coming up, it was tricky to see that, obviously. But when it was highlighted with the referee, she should have asked the TMO. All she's got to do is, will you just check the last breakdown? If he checks that and looks at it, he'll see that. And it's a red card, and it changes the whole game. But look, I didn't want to come in here this morning focusing on that. I think
it's hard not to, though, right? Because the game is in the balance so much.
It's a big story, and I was more frustrated with Eve Higgins twice in the second half. 2 penalties that should have been given to her twice. Avian O'Reilly, and maybe 3 times in the game, was taken out at scrum half. You're not allowed to tackle at scrum half. Play on, the ball was out, she said. There was a couple of things there that were.
Was the ball out for France's breakaway winning try?
I think the players parted that ruck there, and I'd be very dubious as to that if that's a
do they not go back and have a look at that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there that were crucial. When you lose a game, Ger, we can always pick out a few things, of course, but there's definitely 1 or 2 frustrating ones there. I think from their own reality, and the reality, I used that word on Friday morning, is we're not clinical enough when we get into attack zones. Again, their breakaway try comes from, if you want to be really picky here, the French player in the tackle completely blocks Fiona Tweet. She trips over her trying to make that clean out. But it's a turnover again, and we had a couple of those where players are kind of fighting to get yards, they fall down. A couple of our...
So we're not clean enough at the breakdown?
A couple of our players who are trying to get to make that clean out end up losing their feet or flopping down, and then they're isolated. We saw a couple against New Zealand last week. There needs to be a better awareness there of trying to keep your feet under you, bouncing away from that traffic that sometimes is there. But... they were the frustrating parts. That's the clinical side of our attack. Again, the weather was horrendous. That's the reality. But the second half, it got better. It wasn't as wild. And we have an inability to get the ball to our wingers again with space. And we did Stacey Flood's try. We moved the ball there. It was, but there was times in the second half when you've penalty advantage, you've got to go wide there. That's something they have to learn and try and move the ball. I thought the line out at the end, they're down another player. Our scrum was very, very dominant. I thought it was time for a scrum or tap and go. When you're into the clock is in the red, and you're kicking into the corner
record up to
with
that point.
and a windy day as well. I know lineup was pretty good, to be fair.
But at some point, you're like where I think we were perfect up to that point. At some point, that perfection is going to regress to the mean, and you're going to lose one.
The lineup was 94%. There was one or two that went over the top, and it was very good overall. But I think just tap and go there, or take the scrum. Scrum was fairly dominant, very dominant, and very good all day. So there's a couple of areas there that they've got to take on the chin themselves, and just that little bit of athleticism or zip or execution in the attack zone. We managed the conditions brilliantly in the first half. The 30 phases before half time, unfortunate that you don't score there. And everyone probably felt maybe you needed another score with that wind. And
so that's the criticism of the team. Is that unfortunate, or is that a lack of quality?
We're lacking a little bit there in that just explosive ruthlessness, execution. It's very hard to be overcritical here, and I'm not being overcritical. I think that this team was phenomenal, and the effort they put in yesterday, it was just off the charts. It's just heartbreaking, and it's just, you have to be honest with yourself when you want to get to the next level. And to be fair, there's a great ambition, and the strides they've made have been exceptional. They're a brilliant team to watch now. It's chalk and cheese from what we were watching, through a difficult period a couple of years ago. Before that, I know we had some very good players and good teams, and they did well, but through a very difficult period in the last couple of years, they've come on so much. The fitness levels have increased. The top five carriers in the game were all Irish. Aoife away for 26 carries. Phenomenal. Linda Dujang, 24 carries. Incredible player as well. And just what a performance. Sam Monaghan, 16. Fiona Tweed, 14. Ruth Campbell, 13. The next was a French player on 12 carries. The top tacklers in the game, it shows how much possession Ireland have, were the top 10 tacklers in the game.
We're all French.
All French.
Wow.
Linda Dujang was 11th with 13 tackles. They had so much possession. They just need a little bit more ingenuity with that possession in the game. So we've got to a point now where we have ball, we hold on to it pretty well. I know there's a few turnovers there that were frustrating. Turnovers lost for 13. Again, they're small mistakes. The breakdown, was 3 or 4 there at the breakdown that we're just losing our feet, and the real crucial ones, their try that wins them the game is a turnover. That's sloppiness. Mm-hmm. It's players losing their feet trying to get in to make the turnover. So the stats were just alarming how dominant Ireland were, but stats show that they sometimes lie, and France punished them with the 2 tries. I felt sorry for Grace Moore and the yellow card. It's a very unfortunate one. She's not cynically trying to. It's not a reckless one. It was always only going to be yellow. There wasn't a huge force in it, and then France score pretty quickly after that. So we mismanaged a few times and small margins, but overall the effort from the players was just outstanding.
Susanna, that first half was 62 minutes in total. Was there a jaded nature to the Irish display in the second half? In other words, could you see it coming?
No, to be completely honest. I think even when they were at it was like 35 phases at the end of the first half, and had they scored there, you almost would have felt like the game was not done, but it would have been so much harder for France to catch them. So it did feel pivotal when they were running in that they hadn't scored. But at the same time, we had just come off the back of a first half where Ireland had been completely dominant. I mean, it really felt like France hadn't even entered into the Irish half, apart from a few kind of kickoffs and a few breakaways. So to come off the back of that dominance, I don't think anybody was expecting what came in the second half. I think everybody knew that France were going to come out fighting. I mean, this was a quarterfinal. Ireland were really good in the first half, but France were also poor. And that's uncharacteristic of what is a very good team. So I think we knew that things were going to change. And obviously they were swapping sides, so Ireland wouldn't have the wind behind them anymore. So the game plan had to change. But it definitely felt like we were dominant. And if we could keep up that dominance, this was kind of a semi-final for us to have. So no, I definitely don't think it was expected. I think, as Quinny was saying, some of the refereeing decisions were difficult to watch, for sure. But at the same time, that's not what lost them the game. I think what lost them the game was, firstly, the French coming back and being better than they were in the first half, but also the fact that a game plan that worked extremely well in the first half didn't work as well in the second half. And we don't yet, as we've said, we're improving all the time, and we have the ability now to have the ball and to play 35 phases of rugby. I mean, I think the Irish women's team 5 years ago wouldn't have held onto the ball for 35 phases, you know, we wouldn't have even gotten that far. So to see that improvement is incredible. But now we need to have a better ability to deviate from the game plan. There was so many moments where you could see Aimee Koskinen screaming on the wing. I mean, she had both hands up in the air, just like shouting for the ball. And we, as you said, we were playing with penalty advantage, and it needed to get there and it couldn't. And whether that's a confidence thing, because we've seen in the Japan and the Spain games that the girls can pass and the skills are there, but it's the ability to execute the skills under pressure that we don't seem to have. And like Dana with her kicking, also incredible, we saw that, but she doesn't yet have almost the game knowledge to be like, okay, here I don't need to kick really, really long. I need to do a little chip, or here I need to kick over to Amy Lee on the wing. And it's almost like we have the skills, but we're not yet confident enough to deviate away from our game plan and play heads up rugby, I suppose. So I think that is what lost us the game in the second half, alongside some very questionable refereeing decisions. I mean, I was just going to say, you guys were...
go ahead.
Susanna's saying there, she mentions the words under pressure. That's what happens when you get to the kind of business end of tournaments, the big teams in all sport, hurling, All-Ireland final time, football, same, Croke Park, pressure. It's those pressure moments. And people always ask me, like, oh, you know, what's the difference between playing for Shannon, Munster, Ireland? Speed, pressure. It's the time you have on the ball. It's the time you have to do, you know, playing with Shannon, I have a little bit more time to give a nice floaty pass. That speed increases and that pressure when you go to Munster with Ireland. It's all about the time. And they've got to learn this. I think that'll really frustrate that very small margins here, and they're in a semi-final. And, you know, it's all to do with that pressure. To develop and get better, I think you can take so many positives out of that performance yesterday. And France were hanging on at the end.
Yeah.
They got 2 tries, maybe. It's hard to say they didn't deserve them, but they were clinical, like that breakaway try. Surely we have the ability to do that with the 2 wingers we have. They're very, very, very quick. But I think it's just coming alive. And I always heard that kind of term, you've got to come alive and get really energized when you get in those zones and have extra urgency and stuff like that. And a couple of times we just lose our urgency. Like all the phases before half-time, they're very predictable, and you're running at strong players, and it's not, even though it's taxing defending and it takes it out of you a bit, it wasn't like that. They weren't kind of, French weren't being stretched over and back. It was kind of predictable stuff. So we need to get a little bit better there, and they did so much right. I think we need to be able to kick more box kick off our 9 as well. Even though the strategy to kind of sweep Dana O'Brien over and back, and she's a brilliant left boot. So small margins, and look, again, like I said, there's always a few decisions. I think the French coach might come out and say, oh, well, if they lost the game, there's a couple of breakdowns, it's a couple of things.
And
they don't have a big incident like the biting incident, and that should have been dealt with. There's no point. That French player now, her tournament's over. That's the reality of it. And unless they do a Lassisi, Peter Clohessy one, and back in the day when Munster played Cass and he was bitten in the arm, and Lassisi got cleared eventually, the back row for Cass, and claimed that the teeth weren't seen going into the flesh and all that kind of stuff, and a top French barrister bamboozled the disciplinary panel. But it's pretty evident there that there was some sort of a situation of a biting incident which could have been significant.
Susanna, you were coming in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, firstly, that's the difference, I feel like, between the French side and the Irish side. When France got their opportunity and they were under pressure and they needed to score, they were able to string those 4 passes together, get it to their speedy winger, and she was gone. Whereas when Ireland were under pressure and they needed to score, they couldn't get it out through the backs. And firstly, they didn't try often enough, but secondly, when they did, they didn't have the skills to execute it. So I think that was a key difference. But also on the bite, I was just going to come back to it because I didn't have a chance to weigh in at the start. It was played on the screen. Like, firstly, Aoife Wafer said it 3 times to the ref, as you said. Then Sam Monaghan came in and said, look, I think one of my players has been bitten. The ref goes, oh, the TMO's sweeping it. He'll come in if necessary. But then about 2 minutes later, when the scrum was being set and the backs were lining up, it played on the big screen. And you could see everyone, I think the crowd were a little bit confused, to be honest. I personally have never seen that happen. I know it has happened in rugby, but I've never seen it happen live. So I didn't really know what was going on. But all the Irish players were standing there pointing at the screen going, whoa, watch it. Like, please turn around and look, because you can see her being bitten.
That's incredible that it's great that you were there and you saw that. And that's the reality. That's even more damning and shocking. Honestly, that they didn't take hold of this, because Susanna, what's the worst situation can happen here if if it's cleared for the referee to say to the TMO, please look at this. There's a reaction here. The players, I'm not happy. Let's make sure that we clear this here. Like, if they come back and say there's nothing in that, and she has that confidence, the referee, to say to Sam Monaghan, there's nothing in it. It looked a little bit different, but there's nothing in it. But like, for you to say that's happened on the screen and the players are reacting, that's shocking, really.
Maybe she didn't believe Aoife Wafer, because she does tend to, complain a little bit, which is fair enough. It's part of her game. So maybe she didn't believe what she was saying. But I think to be able to watch it then on the screen,
he should still clear it and
see
TMO.
What was going. Yeah, 100%. And also, I was thinking, I don't know, maybe you know better, but should Aoife Wafer have been going up to the ref with the bite marks on her arm and going, look at these teeth marks in my arm. Like, what do you mean I haven't been bitten?
There's probably no bite marks though, because there's
gum shield. Yeah,
that's true. True. So there was no teeth kind of clawed into her arm.
Yeah, but it's not going to look like bite marks. It's like, so you've got a bruise in your arm and you're alleging that it's bite. She's saying it's not. On we go. But if there's video footage of it, which there is, in these instances, is it not beholding on the captain to go, we're on strike. We're not playing on. You look at that.
Again, it's new territory for a lot of the girls. And
but the Irish men captains are all very polite. They're all well-raised young men who are all like, oh, look, sir, maybe you could take a look at that, please, sir. I'm like, no.
Yep.
Do we not,
sometimes the referee will get
rugby culture.
We're not doing it anymore the referee until in any situation when any team will get animated. We saw the one at the World Cup between South Africa and England, where there was an allegation of a racist comment made, was cleared, and it was, down to
language,
the interpretation of Afrikaans and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not siding either way in that situation, but I'm just saying there was a lot of pressure put on the referee at that time. I think who was refereeing, I can't remember. And it has happened. I've played in matches where captains have put that pressure on. In the modern day, you have to be very respectful, but I think definitely there is a situation, Ger, where you can really say, I'm not happy with this, and I want to protect my players, and something's happened here. I need you to clear this for me.
Dan O'Keefe was the referee.
That comes with experience, in a sense that Sam Monaghan, to be fair to her, there's not a lot more. Now, if the camera zones in there and there's a bit of a heated debate and she's saying, go away from me, and Sam Monaghan has been fairly strict with it, you're then thinking, that's been watched by everybody and I have to act in this. But look, as I said, Ian Tempest, the TMO, he's very experienced. He's done loads of this. He has to even hear the conversation that's going on. And, it'll never happen, but it would be great today to hear Ian Tempest say, well, I didn't see it, or I should have, or there is no accountability there, and you're into a whole new world of that situation.
But how could you not? How could you not see it? I mean, it was played so many times.
Yeah.
He must have been having a cup of tea, like in the other room, to
And
have
it's
not
not
been
a
able
kind
to
of
see it.
it's Susanna. It's not a kind of a stray punch or a bit of a, oh God, the tackle was up here and it could go either way, and
No, it's
leave it off.
long
It's a
Luis
big
Suarez
but
nibble.
Biting is a
Twice.
different scenario.
She doesn't get enough the first time, and then she kind of latches on and goes in for a second nibble. So, like, it really wasn't. It wasn't just a quick brush of the teeth. It was definitely intentional.
Can I take you back to, Susanna, the moment in the 67th minute? So France take the lead for the first time, the conversion's missed. There's only 2 points in it. Now, it's not for another 9 minutes that France had 3. I suppose this is for both of you, actually, but what, in that 10-minute period, just shy of 10 minutes, what could Ireland do differently to apply pressure on the French? Because it felt like we were out of steam a bit. I know there was that last phase in the game when the ball was turned over in injury time, but in that 9 minutes, when there's only 2 points in it, Scott Beeman and the coaches look back in that moment. What can we change there?
Yeah, I think, as I said, it was the same throughout the second half. They just weren't able to put the right kind of attack together. They were still playing the same way they had been throughout the whole game, and it's something that worked in the first half, and it obviously didn't work in the second half. And I think Quinny struck on something earlier that was something I noticed during the game. They had very little deception, I suppose is the word I'm looking for. Like, they would hit a pot of 3 carrying up, and that pot of 3 were extremely strong, and you knew they were going to get the ball. And yes, they would make 5-10 meters, but there was nothing else that was coming, so it was extremely easy to defend. I mean, I think you could see the French weren't defending. They were defending about 60 meters of the pitch. You know, they were leaving a massive space on the side because they knew Ireland weren't going to get the ball there. Whereas I think if you have that pod kind of running, but secretly you've got Dana coming out, the ball going to Dana out the back, and suddenly you've got 2 passes and Amy Lee Costigan, who barely anyone can catch her, sprinting down the wing, maybe you've got a different story. I just feel like they stuck too much to a game plan, and maybe that's, you know, nerves and stress. And to be honest, they did look very calm, even walking into that very last line out. They looked cool, calm and collected, and like a team that were going to finish this off. And I had hope until, to be honest, the very final whistle. I really thought they were going to do it, but they just didn't have the confidence to move away from a game plan that was clearly set and then clearly very easy to defend, I think, in some ways. So personally, that's what I felt needed to change. But whether that was in those 10 minutes, I mean, I think that was throughout the second half. But they just needed a bit of ingenuity. They needed someone to break away and do something a bit different, and that didn't happen at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say just throw caution to the game and just throw it around. You can't do that. There's only one score in it. I think probably playing 2 phases, moving the point of attack a little bit more, quite predictable, as Susanna was saying, just 1-out passes, maybe try and get a little bit width. And they actually managed it a few times well to get territory, because it's all about territory in that situation. When you're kind of playing into a wind, you want to try and get down there. And we did get down there on 2 or 3 occasions. But yeah, a couple of poor decisions, quicker breakdown. And France at that stage, if I'm defending as a French player there, I'm just saying, forget the breakdown, just fan around, loads of players in front, pressure on Dana O'Brien. So I was just trying to find a little bit more deception. And it's about extending the main plan A, which was yesterday, do the fundamentals right, your breakdown, your set piece, your kicking game, your strategy going into the game. But to extend the possibilities with this team, we need more pace, we need more deception and attack, and we need to be a little bit less predictable. And that sounds harsh. That's been just assessing it at the top level. They have done remarkably well here, and so many good things well. Even the Aoife Wafer, like, she makes 26 carries. At times, just have a pass across in front of her where somebody else is running on a hard line. The French started to really man up 2-3 players, and she got smashed a few times.
Yeah, looked like
so just even a little tip-on passes and stuff like that in those carries, passing behind that pod to get a little bit of width, having our wingers coming in off the wing. We don't see them coming off the wing much. So there's a couple of little things there. So just, I would say, the last 10 minutes, just they managed to get down there and they just didn't execute. So they didn't do a lot wrong in that period, which was a little bit frustrating for them. But I have to re-emphasise the point, like where we've been and where this team have come to. Physically, the collisions, France had to make 283 tackles in that game yesterday. Ireland had to make 110. Like, there is positives there to say that we've now got to a level where we are physically okay. We're matching up.
It's just that there would have been two more weeks of excitement for the game in the country and for people to come out.
And I don't buy into, oh God, it's just as well because England would have destroyed us in the semi-final.
Then you would have been in the third.
You never know. You want to try and get into it and test yourself and have a crack there. And they are a phenomenal side. So, look, they can keep their heads held up. They should be very, very proud of themselves. And the key now is keep Scott Beeman. He's another year left.
Like he wants to do it.
Yeah. And keep the coach and ticket. They've all done really well. When you've got Dennis Fogarty, Gareth Steenson, Alex Codling, he's gone to Munster, but you've a really good coaching group there, and it's great to see that they are getting to support now, and they're reaping the rewards. That tiny little bit yesterday, it just came up short, but they can be very proud of themselves.
All right, Quinny, Susanna, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Reminder, off the wall breakfasts with UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate, or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action.